Hello, I'm Nikki P. I have a degree in film, and I saw Last Breath. It's a movie about a guy trapped on the bottom of the ocean. All he has is a broken diving suit, some flares, and 10 minutes of oxygen. If any of this sounds familiar to you, it's probably because you saw Last Breath, the 2019 documentary, also directed by Alex Parkinson. It actually uses a ton of real-life footage. Because of the specific circumstances, a lot of this crazy thing that happened was filmed. And Alex Parkinson, the director of both that documentary and this film, has decided to reenact the whole thing. And there's a bit of a question in the air. Why make this movie? It's already a pretty good documentary. There's already a ton of real life footage in the documentary. What is the point of this? And Alex Parkinson doesn't have a good answer for you. This movie does not need to exist at all. And you should just go and watch the documentary right now. That's my whole review. In my explanation for why this movie shouldn't exist, I will be referring to the full events of the documentary and thereby spoiling the movie, so this is your last warning. First problem with this movie is the choice of main character. It's all framed around Chris Lemon's experience. And this might seem like the right choice because, after all, it's his life that is at stake. He's got the most to lose. The unfortunate truth is that Chris spends all the most exciting parts of the movie completely unconscious. So he kind of isn't in the movie for the most important parts of the movie. I think this would have made way more sense from Woody Harrelson's perspective, but Chris is the only character that we know much about. He's the only one who has stuff going on outside of the bottom of the ocean, and it's kind of impossible to get over the fact that he's just not contributing anything as a protagonist for a very long stretch of the film. Not his fault, but second of all, this is a survival story where all the key players are separated by vast distances, and that's not totally uncommon. But in this specific situation, they really can't communicate anything to each other beyond the obvious. I hope he's okay. I hope we're not too late. Maybe we're too late.
I can't see you!
I was really craving some insight into what they were experiencing, maybe some scientific explanation of what we were looking at. Do you see where I'm going with this? I wanted this to be a documentary where characters could describe what they were feeling and process it in front of our eyes.
I was hoping I was pulling Chris in, but in my heart of hearts, I knew I wasn't. I knew there was nothing on the end.
The other problem with this story as a narrative, not a whole lot happens. This is a short film. It's like 91 minutes or something, and it's very padded. There's a lot of story on either end of the real meat of the story. And that's because there just aren't that many events. I mean, the whole thing unfolded in about 40 minutes. So you kind of have to pad it a lot to make it feature length. And that's kind of what it feels like. We spend a really long time getting underwater, and then after everything's done, we spend a long time with the characters afterwards. Alex Parkinson also makes some odd choices that almost made me feel like he didn't remember what it was like to hear this story for the first time. I wondered if he was assuming that we knew the story going in. The biggest example of this is when Chris is being dragged into the diving bell. Finally, he's been out of breath for half an hour, and Simu is pulling him up into that diving bell. And the music is very triumphant. The score, by the way, overall is very conventional, very overbearing. But in this particular case, it's actually playing a beat ahead of what we're seeing. I mean, as an audience who doesn't know how this thing ends necessarily, we're seeing a lifeless body being dragged into a diving bell. No one is going to be okay after not breathing for half an hour. And even if they do revive him, he's probably going to be brain dead. But the music is playing as though we can assume that the hardest part's over and he's going to be just fine. And I just think that's a huge storytelling mistake. And then there comes a point in the film towards the end where we flip back into real life footage. And it's almost as though Alex Parkinson is openly admitting that you can't possibly do better than the real life footage. So why are we making this? Why am I watching this movie? Why didn't you shoot this part of the story with the actors? Now, this isn't like a full-on shit show. There are elements of this movie that did make me lean forward and hold my breath, and I was like a little bit excited. But the problem is the doc exists. The doc exists, and it's by the same person. And it like just came out. It's just such a head scratcher why this movie is a movie when there's already a movie. If you're looking for a great dramatization of a real-life survival story, see Apollo 13, see The Society of the Snow. I haven't seen the doc since 2019, but I did viscerally remember the doc when I saw the marketing for this movie. It did have an impact on me. There's a reason this story is being told again so soon after the documentary. It's because it's a great freaking story. And any success this movie has is really just due to the core strength of that story. But don't see the movie, see the doc. Until next time, I'm Nikki P. I have a degree in film. Bye for now.